Welcome back to You Can't Deny AI. I'm Hina.
And I'm Shaylee. In our last episode, we talked about how modern technology is changing healthcare from the outside. Today, we're going to shift the focus inward, straight into the developing adolescent brain. We are diving into how screen time is actively sabotaging adolescent sleep cycles, creating what psychologists call a profound mental health spiral.
Let's start with a concept that completely changed how I look at my phone at night, the biological mismatch. Most people assume that teenagers stay up late simply because they're being rebellious or want to talk to their friends. But biologically, it's a completely different story.
Exactly. During puberty, a teen's brain undergoes a natural shift known as delayed sleep phase preference. Essentially, their internal biological clock, or circadian rhythm, delays by roughly 2 hours. It makes it physically difficult for them to feel genuinely sleepy before 11 p.m.
Right, so their bodies are naturally wired to be night owls. But right as the shift happens, we hand them a device that pumps about 400 to 500 nanometers of high-intensity blue light directly into their retinas.
And this is where the mismatch turns into a biological train wreck. Those blue light wavelengths strike specialized cells in the eyes called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. These cells bypass the visual parts of the brain and send an immediate daytime signal straight to the master internal clock.
Which triggers a negative feedback loop to the pineal gland, completely halting the production of melatonin, the exact hormone the body requires to wind down and sleep. According to a landmark study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, adolescents are significantly more sensitive to evening light than adults, so their melatonin levels are suppressed far more aggressively, which completely locks them out of sleep. But Shaylee, whenever I hear parents talk about this, they always use the night shift defense. They say, it's okay, my kid has a blue light filter on their phone or wears blue light glasses, so late night scrolling is perfectly fine.
It sounds reassuring, but it's mostly an illusion. The physical light is only half the battle. The real sleep killer is what researchers call cognitive and emotional hyperarousal. It's the content on the screen, not just the glow from it.
Right, when a teen is scrolling a highly algorithmic short-form video feed, texting in a group chat, or playing a competitive game, their brain is flooded with a neurochemical cocktail of dopamine and cortisol. So this triggers the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, placing the brain in a state of hyperarousal and high vigilance.
Exactly. You physically cannot transition smoothly into deep, slow wave sleep when your brain is actively treating a smartphone like high stakes social arena. And it's an unfair fight by design. Behavioral scientists build these apps to exploit the adolescent brain's highly sensitive reward center.
It's a classic case of dopamine asymmetry. During adolescence, the brain's reward center is fully matured and craving a stimulus, while the prefrontal cortex, the logical break of the brain, is still heavily under construction. Expecting a teenager to just use willpower to put a phone away at midnight is asking them to fight modern computer science with an incomplete biological toolkit. And because that biological break isn't fully formed, teens end up paying a massive FOMO tax, the fear of missing out, which takes up straight from late night doom scrolling to some seriously alarming sleep statistics.
The numbers are absolutely staggering. Data from the nationwide Common Sense Media Research Report shows that 89% of teenagers keep at least one digital device in their bedroom overnight. More than a third of teens, about 36%, confess that they wake up to check their notifications at least once in the middle of the night.
That is massive. A 2024 study published in JAMA Pediatrics found that simply leaving a phone ringer on overnight increased the odds of severe sleep disruptions by 25%. These nocturnal awakenings break sleep continuity. It means even if a teen is technically in bed for 8 hours, their deep REM cycles are completely fragmented, leaving them profoundly exhausted the next day.
It creates a state of perpetual social jet lag. By forcing their bodies to stay awake on weekday nights via screen light and then sleeping in for hours on weekends to catch up, teens expose their master internal clock to the biological equivalent of flying to and from New York to Paris.
Which brings us to the most critical part of this entire conversation, the mental health spiral. Because sleep loss isn't just a side effect of teenage anxiety and depression, it's a major underlying cause.
A longitudinal tracking study published in the PLOS Global Public Health empirically verified the screen sleep displacement theory. High screen time at night directly deteriorates multiple sleep pathways within 3 months, which acts as a primary driving mechanism for elevated clinical depressive symptoms over the subsequent year.
Because sleep is the ultimate janitor for the adolescent brain, during sleep, the brain literally flushes out metabolic waste and consolidates emotional memories. When you starve the prefrontal cortex of that recovery time, the emotional regulation and mood control in your body starts to misfire.
Exactly. When sleep breaks down, mental resilience breaks down. And no coping mechanism, no matter how helpful, can fix a fundamentally exhausted brain. Which brings us to our user Q&A. Tina, a question coming up from confused parents often is, what if my teen is just reading a comforting ebook or watching a relaxing video to soothe themselves to sleep? Is enrichment at night digitally harmful for sleep patterns and satisfaction?
It feels like it should help, but a classic study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences compared light emitting e readers directly to traditional paper books. Even though both groups were reading, the screen readers took significantly longer to fall asleep, had suppressed REM cycles, and woke up much groggier. So, using a screen to self soothe actually causes stimulus control reversal. It trains the brain to associate the bed with mental focus and scanning rather than biological shutdown and sleep.
So, what is the actual solution? Just total tech bans?
Not at all. The sweet spot lies in structural friction, not parental autocracy. The most effective step you can take, supported by research in JAMA pediatrics, is simply removing the phone from the bedroom entirely overnight. Relocate the charger to the kitchen counter. If a teen has to physically get out of bed and walk across the house to check a text, the friction gives the logical brain time to kick in and actually understand that it needs to go to bed when it gets back to the room.
And instead of just using your phone for an alarm clock, we can use an analog clock instead. Combine that with automated settings like Apple's downtime to gray out social media apps at 9:30, so that way the light in there doesn't tempt us, and you create a predictable hands-off digital sunset.
We don't have to choose between a connected social life and a healthy brain. We just have to design our environment more intentionally so we can have both.
Well said. That's all for today's episode of You Can't Deny AI. Protect your sleep, protect your peace, and we'll catch you next time.